Welcome to Allama Iqbal Open University. We are gathered over here today for the lectures on strategic management, and with me I have a panel of students who are Fiza Minhal, Hasib Tabassum and Munib. And as I've welcomed them, I will welcome all of you, the viewers who are with me as of this moment taking this class. We will be talking about strategic planning, we will be talking about its management, and we will talk about certain matrices which are very important in the strategic management and why people follow these plans. First of all, before we start off, I would like to ask everyone, ask yourself, and I am asking through this medium in front of me, I will ask students over here what basically strategic planning is. Fiza?
Strategic planning is to plan and to communicate, planning on to what we have to do, what we will achieve in our future. That is all planning. Planning effectively, actually.
That is very true. Basically, we look in the future. Reason we do that is if we want to know where we are and where we want to be, we have to plan things. That is what basically strategy is all about. In other words, in simple English, we can say strategy stands for planning, such as it's a process to establish priorities on what will accomplish in future, and by accomplishing who? The organizations. Definitely they are in the business, they are in the market, they are there to serve the customers and the consumers, and they will be the first people to answer these questions, that who are we planning for? Of course, we plan for our customers and consumers. Secondly, it forces you, and by you again I mean organization, to make choices on what you will do and what will you not do. Ifs and or buts are the questions which need not to be answered, but what we want to do and what is there that we have to do. There are certain things which are must for strategic planning. We have to think about it, we have to rule those things, we have to make plans for those things. Thirdly, it pulls the entire organization together around a single game plan for execution. Definitely in management, there are people working as teams, there are people working as managers, there are people in numbers who are there for one particular reason, and that reason is to have the organizational goal, to achieve those goals. Those goals are basically to maximize the profit of an organization. And those plans, those strategies need to be for one organization, which should and have to be comprises on the entire teamwork. Nobody can say.
But sir, how strategic planning forces you to prioritize different things, like what you want to do and what you don't want to do? Like what would be those bases of doing?
See,
it's not really what we are forced to do. It is what we have to do.
What
so
you
how
have
come
to do.
it is, you know, it forces us?
See, Hasib, the thing is when we say that what we have to do, these are the priorities. What needs to be done? Suppose we are talking about automotive industry, right? The first plan they should have is what price level should be there, supposedly. What number of units we need to produce to market them at that given moment. And then the thing is what design they should be following it, what accessories they should be having in that car. These are the things depending on who prioritize what. Now, looking into a restaurant industry, okay, it's again a business. What is your first priority over there, Munib? In restaurants, what will you look for?
To satisfy your customers.
There you go, to satisfy customers. See, their priority is to satisfy customers. How to make plans to give that satisfactory level to your customers, right? These are the things which needs to be answered. We cannot say there are set patterns. Each organization, each company, each team has their own priorities. Finance managers, they have their own priorities. Human resource managers, they have their own priorities. Managers who are managing the entire organization, they have their own priorities. So one cannot say it's a set pattern. Depending on each priority comes, which is for you to decide, is this my number 1 priority or is this my number 4 priority? You have to decide accordingly yourself, right? It's a broad outline, which is strategic management. It's a broad outline on where resources will get allocated, okay? Broader scene, broader horizon, where we need to allocate our resources, and those resources can be your financial resources, those resources can be your human resources, those resources can be your anything, your raw material, your marketeers, your products, your logistics, anything and everything that needs to be allocated, and that has to be in a broader term. We cannot specify to that one limited thing. We have to broaden it to the limit where we can say, yes, we have answered all the probable answers and we have prioritized them. That's what we look into it. Moving on, why do we need to plan? A simple thing. When we wake up in the morning, we plan our day ahead, right? It's a small thing. Can we say it's a strategic plan? Yes, very rightly so. It can be a strategic plan, but
for us it is a plan.
For everybody it's a plan. For a manager, it's a plan. For you, it's a plan. For me, it's a plan. I'm sitting over here in front of you. Was that a part of plan? Yes. And that's what that strategic plan is all about. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. That is the most important thing. Nobody can say, I live my life without plan. No manager can say, I've walked into my organization without a plan. If for some reason anybody says that, then believe me, that is the person who is basically falls into this category where you say, then you plan to fail. Be proactive about the future, okay? You have to say this thing will happen in future, and yes, this thing will definitely be there at given time.
How organizations will forecast the future? Like, would there be any standards or criteria for forecasting? Like, there would be certain forecasting techniques, tools and techniques, or it would be their the managers or the organization's judgmental analysis. Like,
there are tools, there are techniques where managers need to follow those tools, those techniques for forecasting, right? What will happen in future? A very small example, if suppose rain starts falling and you need to move your logistics, can you forecast that rain? Yes, these days we can. In the past, it never happened before, but what managers were doing in those days? Were they not forecasting that what if something happens? Of course. See, you go through this first line, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. That's what managers do. You have to plan everything. You have to forecast everything. You have to, a small thing, prices go up. Can you forecast that? Yes. Why? By looking at the economy, where the economy is heading. Is it upward trend? Is it a downward trend? Or it is on the maturity level? We have to see that, and accordingly we need to plan out on our forecasting. Logistics, I've already mentioned. Prices, you have to do that. Human resource management, which is again a part of strategic planning. for human resource, for human beings whom we need to hire, how many people we need to hire.
Forecasting the future, we could say that we need to have a backup plan for our every basic plan as well.
Exactly. That is a must thing. What if your plan A did not work? Will you not have a plan B? Of course, you should have plan B. You should have even plan C. Anything and everything can happen. Things which are not seeable, things which are not predictable, you have to even plan for those.
So by this you mean you should have backup plans and alternate things to like
Of
cope
course,
up with these
of course,
as it's in
of
anything
course.
which goes wrong.
You should have these things.
Okay.
Reason, if you don't plan, then again what happens? You fail.
Yeah.
And do you want your organization to fail? Do you want your
not.
managers to fail? Do you want, as a team leader, do you want to fail? Of course not. Nobody wants to fail. Everybody wants to be on a successful path. They want to achieve everything. And that is the main thing we always go for this thing. As we move on into our lecture, you will see that these questions which were asked by my students, and definitely these questions will be in your minds as well. You will get the answers just by listening to what I am saying, and just by giving those examples to you people, you will figure it out that what was going on, why these questions were asked, and what was the reasons that these questions were asked. That is why we are here to answer these specific questions, and that is why we are here to figure it out, to make plans and to make backup plans further on, to have a smooth sailing in our organization. The very first thing is where are we now? That is the assessment. Every organization need to ask this question from themselves. Where are we now? Are we at the right place? Are we doing the right business? Do we have the right number of people? Do we have the right demographic location where we are doing our business? These are the assessments you need to answer. You need to ask yourself. You need to ask your team members. You need to ask your managers, or managers need to ask their team players. Reason? We are here to plan. Nobody can say, I can make plans on my own. Nobody can do that. You have to have people, you have to have brainstorming for that. You have to have people asking these questions. The more you ask, the more you are able to answer. So that's how you assess yourself.
But sir, is it just an internal analysis of the organization, but or the external analysis, like the environmental analysis or something, it's like cultural aspects or your society?
When we say where are we now, okay, that is basically most of the time it's internal, because you're asking this question from your own self. Where are we now?
Don't you compare it with the external as well, depending on what sort of feedback you're getting from your customers regarding your organization? Won't that include your external assessment as well?
Of course, it will include your external assessment as well, but for that we have designed another question: where do we need to be in future? And Fiza, when we say where we need to be in future, meaning that we have to ask this thing from ourselves, right? By looking at the external environment outside the organization. You cannot sit in one place and you can say, I can move from places to places just by sitting in my organization. You need to be out there. You need to be with the people. You need to find out, you need to answer rather those questions which your customers or your consumers are asking from you. Okay?
Sir,
so external factors are important.
Aren't you talking about the initial stages of planning? The initial state of your organization, when you ask this question, where we do stand now?
Okay.
When you ask it to yourself, that means that you're on an initial stage.
You are on your initial stage, fine, but you have been in the market for say X number of years. Say for 20 years you've been in the market,
okay,
right? Now you want to design something new. Now you want to come up with a new product. Don't you think that it is an appropriate question again, where we are now and where we want to be? See, you have to keep on asking this thing. Every time you have to plan something, every time you need to plan something new, you have to ask yourself, where are we? And why do we need to plan? Why we are moving forward? Why we are there to cater more customers? Why we are there for more advancement into our products? Every plan starts with the very basic question where we are, and then you look into your external factors as well. Are they favorable? Can you really assess those things? Was there a gap in between? Is there a place where your product, your services can fit in? Plan. That's why strategic planning is a part and parcel of your business from the day you start your organization or your business, and then with the passage of time, no matter how long you have been in the market, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years, 100 years, those organizations who have been here for more than 200, 300 years, don't you think they were planning from that very first day, and they are still planning? Why? Because they are increasing the number of products and services they are catering to their customers and consumers. So every time they do something new, they need to plan, which ultimately answers their question, where do we need to be? Now, you are here, where do you need to be?
Our future goal.
Your future goal. You are asking questions for your future, and you are answering to those future questions. Ultimately become your external questions. You cannot move internally until and unless you have external forces working with your plans. Or is it possible? Munib? Of course.
Of course
You
not.
need
It's
to
not
have
possible.
internal forces as well as external forces in order for you to move forward. How will you close the gap? That is the plan. How can you cater all your customers? How can you be in all the locations you want to be? Okay? Again, you need to plan. How? Answer this thing. I can do certain planning. I can make up with certain products. I can have certain sort of services which will guide me to be more closer to the gap which was there, which arose because of that plan which I never made it before, and now I'm planning and I'm moving forward. How will you monitor our progress? Balanced scorecard. Scorecard is name given because you keep records of everything. It's a sort of a book. It's a sort of a program where you have your experiences, your inputs in those scorecards, where you have all the records, where you look at them, you judge yourself. If the answers were 100% to the satisfaction of the organization and for your customers and consumers, then you move on. If it had lacking, if there were loopholes, if there were shortages, if there was a glitch in your planning, then you look into those mistakes and you improve them and you move on forward. A good strategic plan should address critical performance issue. What is a critical performance issue? Critical performance issue is, are you satisfying your customers by providing them such goods or services? Are you performing issues internally? Is your team satisfied with the work environment? Are your competitors good enough for you that you are looking into them and you are competing them, you are doing good healthy business with them?
So this means that we're actually analyzing ourselves, our own performance critically at every stage of our work.
That is the best thing to do. Instead of penalizing somebody else, let's address our issues internally first. Why? Because definitely things happen organizational wise, something went wrong internally, right? And when that happens, it affects your external environment as well.
But does that mean that we didn't plan effectively?
Most probably, chances are, at times people overlook things. They give more importance to their customers than they give importance to that internal factor. A very simple thing. If you are working for an organization and the environment, work environment is not to the standard which you expected it, whose fault was it? Mine or yours before joining that organization? And by mine, I mean that I am the organization. I am your manager. Whose fault was that?
Probably the organization's.
Probably the organization. Why? Because it was us who hired the right person for the right job, okay, but she was not satisfied because of the work environment. Why? We talk a lot, but we are not doing to the mark which she expected us to do. So then again, we have to critically look into ourselves. We have to look into our performance first. Anything happen inside organization, good effects will be outside, externally, okay? Your customers will be satisfied, your consumers will be satisfied, you will be doing the utmost job to satisfy the needs and the wants of your customers, right? If internally you are not doing something right, don't you think that it will affect you outside? And by you, organization, your customers will not be satisfied. Suppose you have put up a wrong price tag on your product. It is on a high side. Do you think your customers will buy that high price product, which is not a name brand even as of yet?
No.
No, definitely no. But if you have put a price tag which is affordable to all, have you done your job right? Have you planned accordingly?
Yes.
Chances are yes. Satisfaction. You plan to satisfy, whether you plan for yourself, whether you plan for the organization, whether you plan for the external factors. You plan to the level where you get the satisfaction. Even the big question comes over here, what with our planning competitors will do? Will they take advantage, or will they just we can eliminate them? Chances are we can eliminate them if we are doing a healthy business and if we have planned it properly. That's why these things become very important internally, and yes, again, you have to critically assess ourselves. Ourselves means organization. Create the right balance between what the organization is capable of doing versus what the organization would like to do.
So here again comes that thing, like, is there any sort of criteria, or is there any standard sort of thing, like how would you judge, like, the organization is capable of doing this thing and the organization is not capable of doing this thing?
Hasib, for this thing we have analysis, we call it SWOT analysis, which is known as strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We looked into these analysis, we look into our weaknesses, we look into the opportunities, we look into the strengths, we look into the threats, and then we figure it out that where we are going wrong. What you're trying to ask is, how can we do this thing? This thing gives you a clear picture. What weaknesses are affecting our organizational business?
Like, your strengths are your capabilities.
Can be your capabilities. Strength can be your competitors' capabilities, which you can cash in
But
at
then
all
again,
times.
organization is capable of doing something, shows their capability, and organization would like to do something, shows their choice. What if the organization is capable of doing it, but that's not their choice then?
Do you have any example of that organization which has no choice and still they are capable of doing this thing? Of course not. The thing is this, each organization, even you ask this question to yourself, I can ask myself, this panel of students can ask themselves, that do we have choice of being capable? Choice is not the right word, I would say. We are capable enough. Why? Because we have planned it accordingly. We have looked into our strengths, we have looked into our weaknesses, we have looked into our opportunities, and we have looked into our threats. And then we figured out where do we stand now. At this stage, I would like to share with all of you the SWOT analysis which we are talking about, what strength, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats are. Which thing is for the organization, internal, and what are those matrices, or what are those analyses which are external factors. SWOT, which we call in strategic planning, we call assessment. It's internal assessment. Your strength are your internal assessment. Organizational assets, resources, people, culture, system, partnerships, suppliers. All these things are within the organization, right? These things become your strengths. where you feel the more power. The more assets you have, the more chances are that you will do good business. Why? Because every business organization have assets which they invest and then they make money on that. Are customers your assets? Yes. It says people, culture. Where do we get the customers from? From the culture, from the society we are living in, from the country, from the city which we are working in. That becomes your strength. The more people you have, the more customers you have, the more consumers you have, the more power you feel, the more strength you have. Why? They are your representative. They talk about your products to other people. Externally, external assessment is a marketplace, competitors, social trends, technology, regulatory environment, economic cycle. Anything which is outside your organization. A marketplace is definitely outside your organization. Economic factors is definitely outside your organization. These things become your opportunities, along with threats as well. Similarly, when we talk about strengths, we talk about weaknesses. These people can become weaknesses as well. Cultures become weaknesses as well. If you don't hire the good supplier or the right supplier, ultimately that will become your weakness.
By economic cycles, we mean the economic conditions of our country, or
of any country. Economic cycle is condition of any country.
Is it so that these weaknesses and threats whose benefit goes to the competitors, like they gain the advantage from your weaknesses and the threats?
At times, yes, it is most probable that this will happen, that your competitors will gain from these threats or these weaknesses which you have. That's why we eliminate most of our threats and most of our weaknesses. Why? We need to capture that external environment. The more people are for you, the more services you are providing in the right way, the more goods you are providing in the right way. You have more customers, satisfied customers. They will never deviate to any other product. You look around yourself. You look around yourself. How many times you have bought something which you have been buying it for so many years and you still buy it? Why? Because we have made you our strength. We have controlled you. Or in other words, you as a customers have controlled us. We work for each other together. Since planning is a cycle, and in cycle, what you give me, I give you back. What I give you, you give me back. It is a give and take world. It is a give and take business. Whenever it happens, we have something in return for each other. We try to capture more of our strengths and opportunities and try to eliminate our weaknesses and our threats. Reason, we don't want our competitors to take over our business, to take over our organization. That's why we plan, and we plan very good in this regard, that we should be able to move on. SWOT analysis, good points which I would like to everyone to note down. It will help you in future. Is easy to understand, apply at any organizational level, and its possible pitfalls, disadvantages. Needs to be analytical and specific. Be honest about your weaknesses. Possible pitfalls. How many times you think organization or a manager or a team player will be honest about their mistakes? A good organization always comes forward with the mistake and agrees to it. That is good. Why? Because it will help you to improve yourself. By our mistakes, we learn things and we try not to repeat them again, and we improve more. Reason is, if we control this particular segment, we are controlling the customers, we are controlling the markets. And by controlling, I'm not talking about monopoly, I'm talking about the satisfactory control of the customers, where they are happy to use your products, where they are happy to be using your services, where they feel proud to use your products. Again, I will ask you and you to answer this question. How many products which you use and you feel really good about, and you feel good you have good satisfaction of that product? How many times it happens? You can answer this question.
I guess not a lot of times.
Lot of times. Strengths again are those things that you do well, the high value or performance points. Strengths can be tangible, loyal customers, as I've already mentioned, efficient distribution channels, very high quality products, excellent financial conditions. Strengths can be intangible, good leadership, okay, strategic insight, customer intelligence, solid reputation, high skilled workforce. Anything and everything working for you, anything and everything working for the organization automatically becomes your strengths. Often considered core competencies, best leverage point for growth without draining your resources. Weaknesses, on the other hand, are those things that prevent you from doing what you really need to do. Such as, since weaknesses are internal, they are within your control. Eliminate them. As soon as you see a weakness, eliminate it. Reason, the more it stays, the more problems you will face. Elimination at the very beginning stage will definitely make you fall in the category of strengths. You don't want weaknesses to overcome your organization. Weaknesses include bad leadership. Your manager is not good. He didn't or she didn't hire the right people to work for that job. Your marketing manager was not good. Your financial manager is not good. Never showed you right figures. Your marketing manager never talked about the marketing strategies, how to plan, how to maneuver these products. Your managers never planned properly. Again, you can change them. Better not to hire such people who have no knowledge about these management skills. Unskilled workforce, insufficient resources, poor product quality, slow distribution and delivery channels, outdated technologies, lack of planning. Simple as that. As we are in technological warfare, we need to be at the utmost phase of the technology we should have. Reason, if we fall behind, our competitors will take over.
I think so. We cannot say that these weaknesses are completely in our control, because as you have talked about leadership, bad leadership. If you have hired a manager and he is not he is not sincere, he don't want to do things properly, then the thing is that he has the capabilities, but he is not working well. Then how can you control it?
Also, bad leadership would affect the organization at every single point. So wouldn't that be like ineffective planning for the organization or a failure for the organization? Because he is the leader of the organization and he is not good for the organization.
If you remember the very first word I used, you plan to fail, what happens? You fail to plan. So don't you think that thing was under your control?
Yes.
If you did not hire the right manager, if you did not plan the things even before they were executed, whose fault was it? Yours, mine, or theirs? Bigger picture, the organizational fault.
Organization fault.
They did not plan properly and they failed. So it's not the manager. Yes, Hasib, to answer your question, it is controllable in the regard that things which you can control by sitting in the organization, you can control them. And those controls are human resource, your assets, your customers, your products, your pricing, your logistics, things which you can control by looking into the future, planning. Technological change, don't you think it is in your hand?
Very much.
Ask you and I ask you.
Very much in our hand.
Very much in your hand. Most of the things in your business world are in your control. Most of them, not all of them. Things which are in your control, plan for them. Have strategies for them. Move along with those plans. Reason, the more you plan properly, the more effective organization you are, the more effective leadership you have in your organization. And with that good planning, with that good leadership, you move forward. You satisfy everybody's needs and wants. Moving on, external in nature, marketplace, unhappy customer with competitors, better economic conditions, more open trading policies. Internal opportunities again should be classified as strengths. Timing may be important to capitalize on opportunities. By timing, simple as that, when your product should be in the market. A very simple basic question. Can you have winter clothing in summers?
No.
Of course not.
Can you have t-shirts in winter?
No.
If you have planned it accordingly, the answers are no. Yet again, there are certain countries and there are certain places where they have wrong strategies, wrong plans, and they market their product at the wrong time. Why? They plan to fail. Simple as that.
It's so simple, like if you find some opportunity to cover or to target some market and you spend a lot of time in planning sort of things or managing your resources, and then you come out and target that market. In the meanwhile, your competitors are also in the market. They will take a short time and they will target that market and they will get the benefit.
Asif, in that regard, I would answer this question in this way. If you haphazardly plan for something by looking at this thing that my competitor will take over the market, will take over the customers I am going to serve, then do you think you're doing the right job?
No, it's not, but if you take too much time, then...
Too much time is definitely is not there on the books. You have to take a limited time, okay? And for that, as a manager, this is what you need to decide. How much time is required to plan? Is an hour enough, a day enough, or a week enough? But when you say it's months and months of planning, then yes, you are wasting everybody's time. At this moment, I hope everybody understood what we have spoke about management and their strategies and the plan. In our next class, I will talk a bit more on the SWOT analysis and the questions which you have in your minds. They will be cleared in that time. For now, please go over these notes and try to put down the questions which you have, and we will, in our next meeting, we will answer to those questions. Thank you.